The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
In this episode of Postcards.
So my name is Brian David Downs, and I make a lot of art.
The name Amundsen has been associated with making and restoring for 3 generations.
So for my first project, I was inspired by some of the folk traditions that I heard in rural Canada, and it was all filmed in southwestern Minnesota.
We have about 95 different presenters here and about 285 people coming to listen to them.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yekel Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.
We spend a day with music-inspired artist Brian David Downs, who creates striking band posters and fine art.
So my name is Brian David Downs, and I make a lot of art when I'm out here in Spicer. It's a bit quieter out here. I have about 1 million ideas a second in my brain, so having just the quietness of the boonies just allows me to sit in my head a bit, sift through ideas, and really kind of organize. Small town America, small town Minnesota. Basically, if you take one step to the left, you'll have a lake, and you take one step to the right, you got a lake. One step back, you got a lake. And probably one step forward, too. Yeah, I started out doing the posters basically on necessity of needing it for band I was playing in, needing posters to spread the word. And after just a few of those, other bands seemed to dig my style of poster making, and I pretty immediately started getting poster jobs and being able to hustle it that way. The posters then both work for the band, promoting the shows and getting people out to them, and as well as getting people to check out the more fine arts side of my work by wondering who's making these posters and what they're up to. The posters are very immediate. They're kind of very loud, obnoxious, in your face, and they're basically to be using to basically get your attention and hold your attention until you have gotten all the information off the poster. It's kind of the function of it. So I do try to stay with the function of the poster, not just make an art piece that looks nice on a wall. That's nice if that happens, but the big concern is that it's immediate and that it gets the information across to people so they know that the event's happening. The posters start out as like just a quick pencil sketch, mostly freehanding. I'll trace little bits and pieces off of like a Google image search, but mostly it's just freehanding it, and even if it is a trace, I basically obliterate the image with kind of not so much grotesque that I'm trying to go for, but just that loud, obnoxious kind of look to it. I basically just try to stick around stuff I dig, though. I don't really take jobs from anyone I don't, first off, dig. To some extent, I have to be entertained by the band for me to really feel like it's necessary for me to do something with the band.
Well, there's a lot of Brian's art I like a lot. Every time I look at his stuff, I do form an opinion one way or another. It's nothing I have no feelings about. One of the purposes of art is to arouse feelings in people, and they don't always have to be positive feelings. They could be negative feelings, but the purpose is to arouse some sort of feelings. And if it doesn't do that, it's failed as an art.
And it works really nice with the posters, because getting kids to come out to art shows where you have a bit slower reads on the art is pretty impossible to do. So having something, as far as a poster goes, as much as it's an ad for the band, it really helps me get my name and art out there as well. Yeah, I've been trying to kind of stay in Fluxus series, where the series are more or less so self-referential to themselves and take on a meaning, but with like the posters, with being immediate, the more so fine arts, as some people call it, it's a bit slower read. It slows down the image. It gets you to really take a bit more time and think either what the image is, or if there's some kind of thematics to it, where the posters are very fast, abrasive, but once you're kind of done looking at it and getting the information, that's about all there is to it. With the more fine arts, there's a bit more depth, and you can basically spend years with it, hopefully, and keep gaining new insight on it. Working out in the country gives me a lot more free space in my headroom, not to be distracted, compared to being in a larger city. It's basically me in the outdoors. I'm a pretty big hermit when I'm out in the boonies. It's my dog and me, and then seeing kind of fam, but as far as the art making, it's a pretty isolated process and being. Spicer's nicer. It's quiet. You don't have your big chain stores. There's your gas station and bait shops. Nice little ma pod diners. Just the towny folk. They're pretty. I'm a little bit weird looking, so I understand I get a few different looks here and there. Overall, though, the people are really friendly. Just your good old small town folk. It's always been kind of the back and forth between country life and city life, and fortunately or unfortunately, I've become pretty molded to that, of needing kind of both to exist and stay sane.
At the intersection of three bustling highways, Ken Amundsen of Amundsen Violins builds, repairs, and appraises violins from around the world.
I work with violins for a living. I create violins, and I also restore violins that have been damaged for performers all over the United States and parts of Canada. And last week I sent one back to Norway. The term for what I do is called luthier. Well, Amundsen Violin has existed as a retail storefront for about 35 years. The name Amundsen has been associated with making and restoring for 3 generations. My business as Amundsen Violin has been in Benson here for 9 months. Previous to that, it was 8.5 years in St. Paul. Then Amundsen Violin was 21 years in Alexandria, Minnesota, and then it was 8 years in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. I came back to Benson because I lived here until 1959. I was 14 years old when my parents moved out of here for economic reasons. And I thought the only place on earth that anybody would want to live would be Benson. And if you didn't live there, you probably wanted to live there, you know, as a little boy. I felt sorry for my sister when she got married and had to move to Montevideo, Minnesota, you know. And always wanted to come back to Benson. This corner was the corner to be on when you were a kid. Highway 12, U.S. Highway 12, comes out of Minneapolis and continues through town and goes out towards Danvers. Minnesota Highway 29 comes from the Alexandria area and crosses at this corner and goes down toward Montevideo. Highway 9 from the New London area and St. Cloud area comes through town and heads out towards Clontarf. This was the main corner that you hung around as a kid. The restaurant that was in this building was called the Viking Cafe, and everybody remembers the Viking Cafe. Several months ago, a man by the name of Daniel Allen Butler gave me a call. Something that's for sale now at Aldridge & Sons in London, England, is a violin that they're looking for 6 figures for, that supposedly was found several days after the Titanic went down. And Daniel Allen Butler wanted my opinion. So I did an experiment with this violin. This was a very decent, not a rare, valued violin, probably worth $400 or $500 is all. And I put it inside this case in good condition. The case and everything was good condition. And I put the case and the violin in 40-degree salt water right out by my door and let it soak overnight. And when I took it out of the barrel, the case had come apart, all in pieces, and the violin had totally come apart. All the parts that you see laying here were off of it. And this is kind of a nutshell version of my opinion on the violin. But anyway, I feel like I proved that they did not have a violin that was soaking in salt water for 10 or 14 days or whatever they're claiming. The professional classical violinists or classical players that I've done business with, you wouldn't recognize their name, you know. And it's too bad because they actually work harder than the country and bluegrass people. But country and bluegrass people that I've done business with is Ricky Skaggs. He's a very popular country player and a bluegrass player. Vince Gill, Marty Stewart. A couple of years ago, I hand-carved a gold-mounted bow for Allison Krauss. She's Allison Krauss in Union Station, and she's very, very popular. And then just about every act in Branson, Missouri, I've done a lot of business with. A family that I've done a lot of business with there is the Dutton family. And they started out, mom and dad and 7 kids, and they were just kind of experimenting, playing their music, and they grew and grew and grew and grew until they bought one of the biggest theaters in Branson, and they've been there over 20 years now. The thing about it is that it's fun to meet those famous people, but the amount of times that happens, you would never, ever make a living off of it. I appreciate much more the mom and dad that bring a 10 or 14-year-old daughter or son in here, and they're doing their best to pick out a respectable violin for their child to learn on. And so I try to suit up a nice instrument that is very sturdy and very durable for the young student. I try to take care of them that way because I do appreciate the average person that walks through my door. And then there's a lot of elderly people that are sitting there retired and wondering what their family violin is worth and what they should do with it. And so part of my advertising and what I promote is free appraisals for anybody that carries a violin through the door. I'll appraise it and tell them what they can do with it and what the likely activity they might have if they put it on the market as opposed to restoring it and then putting it on the market. I try to be helpful, and I think it ends up being helpful. There's an awful lot of Benson that was here when I was 14 in 1959 that I still love very, very much, and it's the closeness of the community, and everybody knows you and respects you. And for my graduating class, which would have been 63, I think I've heard something like 60 or 70% of the 125 students in my class are still here in Benson. And they've popped their heads in and out of the door. I told them about my coffee crew. And so I have come home. I'm not kidding. I say that with a real good feeling in my heart. I have come home.
Enjoying the show? Visit Pioneer.org for more information on postcards and other Pioneer productions. Montevideo-based filmmaker Samuel Hathaway gives us a look at his first film, Once Upon a Whitsun, all filmed in southwest Minnesota. He also gives us some behind-the-scenes insights on the process of developing a film.
So for my first project, I was inspired by some of the folk traditions that I heard in rural Canada. And as I was writing some of this story, I realized that also it had a lot of the themes that I saw growing up in rural Minnesota. It was small town people. It was rural people doing larger than life things to save their community and save their town. And even some of the landscapes I saw in my head, I realized were from southwestern Minnesota. And so as I was developing the project, I realized that Montevideo, southwestern Minnesota, was really the place where I needed to be to make the project. The film itself takes place in World War II in rural Canada. There's an old French-Canadian man and an old English-Canadian man who hate each other's guts. And at the beginning of their film, their wives die in a train crash. And the train, it turns out, was also carrying German POWs. And so it starts rumors that perhaps there was a Nazi sympathizer that caused the crash to allow German POWs to escape. And so it starts a Nazi witch hunt in the town. But the themes in the film were about finding understanding, even though someone is your enemy, finding a common ground, and common heroes, people in small towns that do larger than life things. And so I made a promo trailer.
If you need anything, let me know.
It's on me, boys.
Stokes on guitar playing the perennial favorite, the Anti-Fenian song. And I'll tell you, subjects, that now it seems you've gone from Irish religious fanatics to German ones, because this Nazi fanaticism is nothing if not cultish, one might almost say religious. Of course, with the pain and hurt of recent wars fresh in our minds, we should question ourselves and our motives before we start making wild assumptions about our enemy. But I think religious fanaticism is hardly a stretch here. Come, let us reason together. Think of their swastika, their perverted cross of faith, Herr Hitler, their godlike vigor, their ritual salute, their air of superiority, of righteousness. And what should we do, subjects? Idly stand by? No, I say we shall fight. And I tell you, subjects, what England has done before, Canada can do with the King's help. For the only thing that will stop the Nazis now, indeed the only thing that has ever stopped fanatics, is a good hard dose of reality. Even now, Nazi troops goose-step across Europe, arms and legs flailing, striking out at communists, Jews. And now, a Nazi sympathizer could be in our beloved Canada. And what shall we do, subjects? How do we find this worm in our King's apple? Open your eyes. Has a Jew been mocked? Has a communist been spoken ill of? These are precious clues. Because a Nazi, you see, cannot help himself. Hate is in his blood. If one of those poor blokes passed a Nazi's path, he'd be struck down on the spot. And then by his fruit shall we know him. So courage, my lads. We shall find these Nazis and smoke them out. We will crush them without mercy and expel them from our King's lands. Of course, if you hear German being spoken by a gaunt man in a dreary black coat, he's probably just a Mennonite. But all others must be crushed. We must fight, lads, we must fight.
Nein. Entfernen Sie diese verdammten Erkennungsmarker. Ich will nichts. Ziehen Sie über die endlos Wildnis von diesem gottverlassenen Land. Auf diesem Kostüm. Eingesogen im Bond der Gnade eines beförderten Raben. Sie fragt alles.
You boys need a hand?
Yes, we would be grateful.
Where are you boys from?
Not far.
So that was my promo trailer, and you'll notice that I was able to have a small acting part myself, so it really allowed me to fulfill all my loves in all parts of filmmaking. And it was all filmed in southwestern Minnesota using artists to make, local artists to create props for the project. The local letterpress, A to Z letterpress in Montevideo made newspaper props. I had a local wood artisan do some antiqued wood crafts for the project. And so it was just a great collaborative effort. We're using this to start a new film company, The Art of Many. It's a new collaborative production company, and you can check us out online.
The Rural Arts and Culture Summit is where interested artists and community members meet to share lessons in art-based community development.
The Rural Arts and Culture Summit is a two-day event, and there's parts of it that are open to the public. So right now we're at a local flavor event that is open to families, and there's all kinds of interactive arts activities going on. But then we have people coming from all over the state and a few from all over the country that have come to attend workshops and sessions about great case studies and success stories in arts-based community development. We have about 95 different presenters here and about 285 people coming to listen to them. It's about the transformative power of arts-based community development. So it's how communities can really frame their stories and their narratives by engaging artists as leaders and looking at challenges and opportunities through the lens of the arts.
I think arts play a pivotal role in economic development, and often they're overlooked. In Lanesboro alone, between the arts organizations, the Commonwealth Theater and the Lanesboro Arts Center, over $1 million a year is brought into the community just from the budgets of the two arts organizations. So the arts can have a tremendous impact in small communities.
think that as you start looking at the economy of a place, be it in an urban setting or in a rural setting, there are people that are around you, and a lot of the times when you start peeling back the layers, lots of times artistry comes out. And having those people within your community and tapping into those resources that they're able to offer then bring things to the forefront.
It's just the beginning, because people are going to go home with great ideas and new relationships.
All my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye, but the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. The taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could cry, so kiss me and smile for me. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go. There's so many times I've let you down. So many times I've played around. I'll tell you now, they don't mean a thing. Every place I go, I'll think of you. Every song I'll sing for you. When I come back, I'll wear your wedding ring. So kiss me and smile. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.
When I won't have to leave alone. About the times I won't have to say, kiss me and smile. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell